Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Ball and Breakfast podcast with Wayne. I'm Patrick, coming to you with some NFL draft tonight. We've been, doing baseball a lot lately. We've done some basketball. If you're with us, go on YouTube, check out what we've got, lately in short reels. We've also got, longer format content. So, if you like what you see, always subscribe here, comment, ask us any sorts of questions or give us some requests or whatever else it could be. We always like the engagement. If you're on podcasts, leave us a review of some kind. 5 stars is always appreciated. Then on Instagram at Ball and Breakfast, you can follow us with any sorts of stories, any sorts of posts, and all that good stuff. So tonight we're shifting back to the NFL. We're getting closer and closer now to the NFL draft. We are super excited about what the Bears are, planning to do here. But for tonight, we're each going to wear GM hats for the 32 teams that are part of that first round. We are going to go back and forth. Wayne has all the odd numbered teams. He's going to be the GM for those. I'm going to be the even team GM, and we're just going to, work our way down the board. Could be some trades. We'll just have to kind of see. But Wayne, why don't you kick it off with the first overall pick in the NFL draft?
Thanks, Pat. Look, first overall pick in the NFL draft, 2004. Going to be exciting. So much has happened. So much drama this offseason with Justin Fields and the Bears. It's got to be Caleb. It's got to be Caleb. I know there's all this subculture, Reddit, dark web stuff with regards to the Bears, but I think y'all are just overthinking, got way too much time on your hands. It's got to be Caleb Williams. I understand that a lot of people think like, oh, Ryan Poles, he needs to, always trade back, and wants, everybody wants to play like, some NFL draft, like GM crazy stuff. But in the end, I think it's got to be Caleb. It's got to be Caleb here, and not looking back, they've made way too many investments, I think, for Caleb Williams for it not to be Caleb Williams. I think, and he'll be going into a great situation, I think, with Shane Waldron. I think a lot of people have been saying that this is the best possible situation a rookie quarterback can possibly have, I feel like. And it's very warranted. So just all the offseason things with Keenan Allen, upgrading a little bit on the offensive line, and getting Shane Waldron. I think all those things are certainly going to help a young quarterback, albeit a stud type of quarterback like Caleb Williams is projected to get. So first overall pick, slam dunk, Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think that's what's going to happen. It's kind of funny, not to be offensive to any sorts of Bears fans, but it does feel like those that are maybe a little bit more negative about the team, gloom and doom in general, maybe the more, homebody type. I feel like they're the ones that are really like having a hard time letting Fields go, like really holding on to those, questionable memories that we got for the last 3 years. Like, I think, of course, like the organization didn't set him up right. He had to go through some transitions there with executive teams and coaches and things. Like he had, not a great hand dealt to him to be a quarterback in the NFL. But in the same sense, like what like high marks did he put out there in the 3 years that he was here? I mean, this isn't to trash on Fields like as a session or anything like that, but I feel like the one game that really stands out to me is just like that opening a game against the Niners, 2 years ago, where just the mud bowl and he was like sliding over the grass, and it was a very iconic like Bears team memory. But beyond that, like I don't remember any games where he just like dazzled us with his arm. It was just like so on point against a really competitive team. It's like in some ways it's like Bears fans being Bears fans and just like, going into this with a very negative attitude when we're looking at one of, the top 5 quarterback prospects to enter, the draft in a very, very long time. And it's like now he falls into our lap with this great roster around him, forming on offense. It definitely showed out second half on defense too. So like be excited, man. If you're a Bears fan, like just get into it. Like get into it, enjoy it, like live the moment. If we happen to fail, if it doesn't work, like so be it. Like we've had worse Bears teams before. So like enjoy the good ones that we're putting together right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like I always hear the people that say like in polls we trust, right? In polls we trust. And it's like, well, are you trusting him? Like this is really putting a test in that phrase essentially. But apparently y'all don't trust him. And some people are saying, yeah, it's a business decision. It's like, yes, this is a business. Like, this isn't college. This whole facts versus your feelings or whatever. I think a lot of people, they have a lot of feelings for Justin Fields. It's like, y'all got broken up, okay? Like, move on. And you're getting a new hot rod in Caleb Williams. Like, be excited about that. Like, move on from Justin Fields. I'm excited about this. I love the moves that Ryan Poles has done. In Poles we trust. Like, let's go. Let's ride with what we have right now.
Yeah, it's a bit ludicrous, but we'll see what happens. I hope this all happens the way it's supposed to, and we can just enjoy it.
Sure. Yeah.
For the number 2 pick, I'm the Washington Commanders. There are 3 quarterbacks out there right now that have really started to emerge. I think there were 2 that were, seemed like kind of leaps and bounds in front of the next set of quarterbacks on the board, but with great pro day and combines and things of that nature. And I'm sure his interviews are great, and kind of watching him last year in college, like JJ McCarthy's really started to emerge here. That said, I'm still, looking at what's going to be in the best interest of my roster right now and moving forward. While JJ McCarthy is rising, I think Drake May has an amazing arm. I think it's the dual threat quarterback that can kind of do it all for Washington as they kind of rebuild their roster. I think they're rebuilding that line. I think there's a lot to like about Jaden Daniels. And I think for Washington, too, there's an appeal there. I mean, in the city of, Washington, D.C., and it's been kind of, something we've been talked about, kind of like I don't want to call it urban legend or anything like that, but just a kind of a well-known fact that most Washington teams want to have prolific African-American stars on their team just because it kind of fits in with the population of the city. And I think Jaden Daniels would be kind of that perfect head for the team. He's definitely proven his muster in the college ranks, like could not have had a better year last year at LSU. Comes in with some question marks on whether or not he can be, able to weather those hits. Is his body frame, strong enough to endure that? But in the same sense, like there are some, I'd say lengthier quarterbacks in the game. I think there's, some guys that are a little bit smaller that have, proven they can take the hits and kind of deal with it. I don't really get too worried about it when I see a guy like Lamar Jackson, who kind of year in, year out's been, doing what he's done in the NFL, and, hasn't really had like a big, injury rap sheet with it. So I think Jaden Daniels will be the pick here. Whether or not he ends up being the best of those next 3 quarterbacks is another question for me, but I think this is the pick at number 2.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, a couple of things of why I think that they'll go in this direction for sure is, they got Mariota. They could have kept Sam Howell in there, right? And Sam Howell, that could have been a good understudy, honestly, for Drake May. Like, both went to UNC, so they have, share that camaraderie and such. And I feel like that would have been a good segue for, Drake May. A lot of people believe that Drake May, he's not an immediate starter, but, with Jaden Daniels, I feel like he can probably start day one. I think a lot of scouts have said if Caleb Williams wasn't in this draft, Jaden Daniels would have been like the consensus number 1 overall pick. And I think rightfully so in this case. So has question marks, but yeah, guess what? Especially with his build, but the NFL is definitely a softer league and treats the quarterbacks pretty well overall. So I think, that alleviates some of the fears of, him just getting hurt all the time and such. So not to say it won't happen, but I think, if I'm a GM, I'll probably take that gamble here. So yeah, I think that's a solid take on that. And then I guess moving on to number 3, gonna take Drake May here. There's probably there's definitely a lot more, I guess, ideas circulating for the Vikings jumping up and trying to swipe Drake May. And I think it makes complete sense if I'm the Vikings. Like, Drake May would, I think, fit so well with Kevin O'Connell and everything he's trying to do there. Like, that'd be a match made in heaven. And I think they'll try to do that. But at the same time, I feel like New England, they really need a quarterback. They need a quarterback. And if they trade back all the way, to Minnesota's picks, I feel like they won't be able to get that quarterback, or a quarterback that ideally that they would like. I don't know if they want to even wait for, say, next year's quarterback draft, which doesn't look as good. So I feel like get the quarterback now, just keep expectations low. and just try to build around him. So I think that's how I would approach it. So yeah, if I'm the Patriots, I might just go with saying, hey, thanks, Minnesota Vikings, for your 2 first-round picks, but no thanks, and just take Drake May and kind of move on from there.
Yeah. I mean, New England can't really trade down in this scenario. Like, then they're like risking being the worst team in the NFL for sure. I think, quarterback is obvious need there, and it's not like the guys at the top of the quarterback board who are even left aren't standouts or guys that are really exciting quarterback prospects. Like just this kind of year for the quarterback crop doesn't happen every single year. And Drake May, for what it's worth, has been kind of like a slam dunk to most analysts. Like this guy is going to be a gamer. Comparing him to a guy like Justin Herbert, like that for sure gets you, franchise money, gets you a starting job in the NFL, and like gets your fan base excited. So New England would be, I think, a little foolish unless they get the Godfather offer to move out of that slot. And yeah, I think Drake May is the right choice still.
Yeah, for sure. Who's at 4?
Well, at 4 is Arizona. That's me. That's my team. I have a lot of needs. You know, could I go the route of taking the Marvin Harrison Jr. pick there? That's been pretty popular in most mock drafts and, what folks have been talking about. But, I'm listening to the buzz. I hear that JJ McCarthy is on a lot of people's minds. There's a lot of teams that, are willing to sacrifice a lot of assets to make, a move up. And, for me, is it worth it to kind of move off the Marvin Harrison pick? Like, we have a lot of needs. Like, we were a pretty, thin football team last year, at the quarterback spot, receiver slots, defense, offensive line, like you name it. We just need a lot more talent here. So I'm getting a lot of, phone calls here, and, perhaps, I'm the one picking up the phone to you, Wayne, if you're, holding, Minnesota's picks here. I know you just came upon another first round pick. I see you're at number 11 there, and I'm interested, man. In general, I think I want both of those first round picks, but I don't think I'm going to play hardball with you. I think if you just hand over those 2 picks, I'll let you get, your next quarterback, franchise there.
Yeah, and I'm all game for it. I think that's great. I think, yeah, like you're saying, I mean, 2 yeah, like get a couple first round draft picks here. Like that's amazing. And then I still have that 27th as well. So it's like, and I think also an early second rounder. This is great. I think this is a great situation, especially in a deep draft. It's like, all right, we already kind of have our quarterback there. Obviously, there's some mixed feelings about Kyler Murray, but look, he's a pretty, decent quarterback in this NFL. So and then yeah, just building a roster around him, I think, is going to be the biggest thing, and building up on that defense. And yeah, 3 first round picks, early second round pick. That's amazing. I feel like, so I'll gladly accept that. But yeah, who are you taking now with that 4th pick?
Yeah, so officially it's the 11 and the 23
Mm-hmm.
for the number 4. I might have gotten that confused a little bit here. But now I was Arizona, but now I have to trade hats, and now I'm Minnesota because now I'm at number 4. And, we brought over Sam Darnold. We were able to sign him. He's kind of our, plan B. He's our stopgap. He's probably the guy who's going to start week 1 if need be. But, long term, we're looking at trying to get our next Kirk Cousins or more. And if I'm Adolfo Mensa, I'm under the gun with the ownership group. Kevin O'Connell wants, somebody who can lead this offense into the future. And again, JJ's had really great pro day. I think he's got a lot of talent. I think he's worth developing and worth seeing, out in this way. And, for us in Minnesota, like we've got a really, tough division we're looking at with the other 3 teams here, like continuing to, grow and get stronger. So, we want to be a part of that dogfight. So we're going to take JJ McCarthy here at number 4 and not look back.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. I mean, I feel like they're developing over there in Minnesota, like the infrastructure for a young quarterback, essentially. Whether it is a Drake May or JJ McCarthy, like you mentioned, Darnold is a perfect stopgap, like the perfect one right now, I feel like. So I think, Connell, he can do the best he can with Darnold, and maybe they win a couple games here and there. Maybe he finishes the season. I don't know, but I feel like when you have a player like JJ McCarthy, who, a lot of people said like, he didn't do too much in Michigan because he really wasn't asked to do too much, and their offense didn't really, I guess, push him to do a lot. But when he did, like, he made plays, and I think that's as much as you can ask. And he has the physical traits, the arm talent to do these things. Just that he was never put in that position to just kind of carry the team all the time. So, but yeah, like, I think that's a great solid pick. I think it makes sense to do that, pull that move, trade up, and yeah, there's a reason why they moved into the first round again, right? In that second pick is they really want to be able to make a move there at quarterback. So definitely see that for sure.
The other factoid I'll throw out there is Josh McCown was actually a high school coach of Drake May. So while Drake May has gone number 3 on our board, it'll be interesting to watch whether or not Drake May is the actual target there, and see, like, would New England be interested in JJ McCarthy in a way that, like, there's this multiple trade up scenario or whatever else it could be. But I just think that's interesting. Whether or not that plays, we'll find out. But for
Yeah.
sure, I think Minnesota's on the hunt for a quarterback, and right now it sounds like they're maybe in the best position to trade up and get one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be wild if that happens, but I would not be surprised because, like like I mentioned before, and like you kind of alluded to, like Drake May, I think with the Vikings would be great. I'm just wondering if what the Patriots' plans would be then around it, because they definitely need a quarterback too, and yeah, the near prospects for the future don't look as good. So I think taking a quarterback at this draft makes sense for them. But then I guess moving on to the Chargers, I think here on number 5, it's like, hey, look, 4 quarterbacks off the board here now. You got to take the best player available there. And just so happens, the Chargers, they're like, you know what? We don't need any wide receivers. Why? Because we're going to get the best wide receiver prospect we could possibly get. They went through some cap cuts there on the offensive side, trading away Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So it's like, hey, look, let's load up on the wide receiver talent. I think they have that feeling that that 4 spot that that maybe Minnesota is going to jump ahead of them there. So, and they feel fine with that, or taking potentially another like Neighbors or something like that. But you got to go Marvin Harrison Jr. You got to go with Marvin Harrison Jr. Probably the best wide receiving prospect we've had in decades, right? So I think it totally makes sense. I know that Harbaugh is very much we want to build through the line and such, so that maybe there is some thought about Joe All, but just with the moves that they've been making, I think it's pretty evident that they're going to take wide receiver here. So gonna go Marvin Harrison Jr. for sure.
Yeah, I think if they keep the pick, they're going with Marvin Harrison. I think to get a guy like that, maybe 10, 12, 15 years in the NFL, hopefully on your on your team, and just kind of enjoy that ride with him and Herbert, especially after, like you said, the wide receiver core is kind of thinned out. But there definitely is a trade possibility there too, given all the Chargers' needs. But again, they hold that pick. I think they take Marvin Harrison, and don't think twice about it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I was thinking like, would maybe Minnesota try to just trade with the Chargers there more so of, that's a possibility as well because, you know, obviously the Chargers, they don't need a quarterback per se, so I think they're going to be free of JJ McCarthy, but that again is if maybe the Cardinals, maybe they find somebody else that is willing to trade up that far for JJ McCarthy, right? So it's really just going to be figuring out what the Vikings are going to be gambling on of what they think makes the most sense. So, but yeah, I think if Marvin Harrison Jr. is there with the Chargers, given the moves you've made, like just take him and try to fill out the rest of your roster, especially that line, which could definitely use some help there.
Sure. At number 6, New York Giants, another team with a lot of holes. They've been a bit aggressive this offseason and kind of building their line, both offensive and defensive. To me, that would have been the sound choice to go with an offensive lineman here, just because of the great ones that are sitting on the board at the top 9 slots of just overall players. Like, there are a couple tackles there that are really appealing, but I think given the investments they've made through free agency on both sides of the line, it does open up this slot now to just take the best player available. And a lot of what analysts have been talking about is just how offense is really dominating these top 9 slots. So with that, they have a glaring need at wide receiver, just like, the Chargers do. And, I think they could do no wrong in grabbing, Malik Neighbors. I think, a lot of folks have kind of bounced back and forth between, is it Odunze, is it Neighbors? They are two different guys with two different profiles, but they both seem to be, kind of will be studs in the NFL. So it's kind of like, whatever you think is the better fit for your team, go ahead and do it. And, I don't know. I'm trying to, go through their roster. They have a deep threat with Jalen Hyatt. They've got Isaiah Hodgins, I believe. Trying to think, Darren Waller. I think they could use a guy who's got, incredible speed, who's very elusive, and a guy like Neighbors. I think that would play, really well with Daniel Jones, and just in terms of like dropping the ball off and not having to kind of wait for big plays to develop. So, I think Neighbors is a safe choice when you're choosing among two elite wide receiver prospects, and I think they'll just go there if they have, the ability to.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're at this point where it's like, hey, we made that big contract investment to Daniel Jones. Let's just make the most of it for the time being, and then kind of when the opportunity arises for us to move on from Daniel Jones, we'll have some more developed weapons that quarterback, eventual replacement at quarterback will have to throw to. So yeah, like I mentioned, like Slayton, who's been hurt a bunch, Wendell Robinson, Isaiah McKenzie, Hodgins, and Wyatt, like you mentioned before, kind of deep threats, but I mean, Neighbors is so well refined. Like, if Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't in this draft, right, like it would definitely be this big battle for the number one spot between, I think, Dunze and Neighbors. But I think you can't go wrong with either of them. Either Neighbors or Dunze. They're just both spectacular, I think, and kind of what they do. Definitely different wideouts, but I mean, just watching the tape for Neighbors, like he can get that yak. He's kind of a mixture of like, I guess Odell Beckham, and then also, I don't know, maybe like a DJ Moore, just being able to make plays once he gets the ball. So, which I think is great for a player like Daniel Jones there. So overall, I think that makes a solid pick. And like you mentioned before, they made some investments on the offensive line already, so it seems like they're going to be moving that towards that direction, wide out.
Got it.
Cool. And I guess moving on to the Tennessee Titans here at number 7. I mean, they got to take offensive tackle, I think, here, and they got to take the best one, I think, out there for sure. Maybe in the past couple years, Joe Alt. Like, if Joe Alt is here and those wideouts are gone, I think even then they've made some investments too on the wide receiving front, and I think they were kind of thinking that some of these wideouts we're going to be taken, and also maybe, hey, look, we'd really like a player like a Joe Alt there. So I think, they take Joe Alt here. I think the Tennessee Titans are very much, it always seems like they're always kind of built on the offensive line. And yeah, with Ridley and Hopkins, I feel like they're pretty good there. They still have a young quarterback there in Levis, and maybe they feel like you don't want to always, just surround him with a bunch of like young wide receiving talent. So, go with more of the, seasoned veterans there for him to throw to and work with. And then, just have some studs on the offensive line like Joe Alt there. So I think, Joe Alt, number 7 here.
Yeah, it's totally smart. I mean, you've got Calvin Ridley, D Hop, Will Levis, obviously, and you drafted Pete Skoronski last year to pair that up with Joe Alt on the front line. It'll be really, really nice. You got Tony Pollard. It's like they are doing similar things to what the Bears are doing in order to make their, young franchise quarterback comfortable. So go all in, go all the way. And no, I definitely think that's a very smart pick.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, number 8. So this is interesting. Sitting in my seat, based on what I did over the offseason, obviously we brought in Kirk Cousins. We got Darnell Mooney to kind of pair up with, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. We have a great running game after getting Bijan Robinson last year and Tyler Algier the year before. We have a pretty nice defense, although, our edge rushers are either getting older or, just are a little bit thin. So it makes a lot of sense for our team to go out and get the edge rusher. The only problem is I think I could get a good one and not have to get it at number 8. So I guess sitting in this slot, I've made a lot of calls. I didn't get a lot of callbacks in terms of, other interested teams interested in, kind of trading up to the number 8 slot. Maybe it's the fact that the top quarterbacks have gone off the board, but if nobody else is going to go step up and, come give me a good offer to move down just a little bit so I can still get my edge rusher in the first round, then what I have to do is take the most explosive talent off the board and just not let the next team in line just grab the next best guy. I just kind of feel like this is a scenario where, it may just add an embarrassment of riches to our offense, but hey, that wouldn't hurt either. So I'm going to go ahead and take Rome Odunze here at number 8. He will be my wide receiver 2 alongside London. And I'll have Pitts, and then we just signed Mooney, Bijan Robinson, Algier, and then a brand new Kirk Cousins to run this offense. I think we have now just supercharged this team to no end. We are still on the prowl for those, edge rushers and other folks we can add to, our defense. But I think I can maybe get that in the second, third round. I'll kind of scrounge around, see what value's out there, but I'm not going to get outgamed here at number 8. I'd much rather just pad my receiving core and just enjoy this. Like, this is going to be a very exciting, couple of seasons here for Atlanta. And man, Roma Dunze is going to fit in really nicely.
I mean, that's definitely going to be, I think, a fun offense there. Yeah, like you mentioned before, with Kirk Cousins, Rome Odunze, Drake London, now Kyle Pitts, like a quarterback that'll actually pass to him, like, very physically talented tight end there. So that's going to be an exciting offense. And obviously the Falcons have had that history of exciting offenses and multiple weapons there. So I think that makes sense, honestly. Like, if I'm in this situation, it's definitely a tough thing to do, but I know that they also have Darnell Mooney too, and it's like, all right, maybe they're making investments here, but at the same time, like, a great offense, and then they had a pretty good defense there too, so like, might as well load up there. And like you mentioned before, you can always draft some defensive end talent there in the second round, which there's projected to be a couple there. So yeah, I think that's, you got to take sometimes the best player available, and when Rome Dunze is there, I feel like, yeah, it's hard to like not pass him up there, right?
Yeah, it really takes the offense from being like sound to very good on paper to being like potentially great. And if I can do that in today's NFL, like I'm for sure going to go ahead and take that gamble, because even in bringing over Mooney, like I think most folks would agree, if there was a more pass centric quarterback under the helm for Chicago over the last few seasons, his numbers probably would have been a bit better. But I'm still not totally convinced he's a surefire wide receiver 2 in the NFL. Like, I need to see more. And while he could be, a good slot receiver and somebody who can, gobble up, maybe short yardage catches and things like that, like I want another stud on the outside. And yeah, I feel like I got a bunch, especially with Pitts kind of playing wide receiver at tight end too.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be exciting, and if that happens, I would definitely be like, all right, I gotta draft some players here on my fantasy team I think for the Falcons, because it's gonna be crazy, kind of what Cousins will be able to do with that amount of talent around. So, moving on to number 9 here with the Chicago Bears. Man, similar situation I think you went to as well. I put some feelers out there, couldn't get any nibbles, but it definitely I think does make sense for the Bears probably to trade back here. There is a need at the edge rush position. Now that the wide receivers are off the table, yeah, and obviously with Keenan Allen, it's like, does it make sense totally to like draft a wideout this high? Not necessarily. So I think they go edge rusher, possibly trading back, but in this situation, wasn't able to get any nibbles here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take who I think is the best one in here and the most explosive one. And I think that really kind of fits what Ryan Poles is always looking for on either the offensive or the defensive line of the ball. And that's Dallas Turner. I think Dallas Turner, killed it at the combine, is a physical specimen, and is a sack generator. I think he complements fairly well with Montez Sweat, who can play, kind of all downs. And, Turner, maybe he just does like passing downs here and there, and then eventually, converts to maybe more every down. But at the same time, like, yeah, on a third down, that's definitely where the money's made. And I think Turner, with that defense that they already have, especially with Matt Eberflus, talking to Ryan Poles ear a little bit, like, hey, I'd love to have like another edge rusher. I think it totally makes sense. And yeah, the Bears really haven't added too much in free agency with regards to that. So I definitely feel like they're eyeing on one of these edge rushers here in the first round. And Dallas Turner, I think, is the cream of the crop.
Yeah, no, I'd be okay with that pick. It sounds like Poles is running, these debates or kind of like GM strategy, simulations with his staff. One going for an offensive lineman at this pick, one for an edge, one for a receiver, and kind of making their best arguments and stuff. Like, I love that. It's good to hear it. I do agree. Like, if we can trade down at this pick, if Odunze is off the board, I think it would probably be smart if it's available to us. Because I do think there's some edge guys that you go down the first round like are equally as enticing. But I would be totally fine. We sit in that pick and we take Turner and just have just a solid two pick first round right there. Really like cornerstones for both sides of the ball. So that'd be great.
Yeah, I do wonder, like you mentioned, like if and we can definitely talk about, I guess, who could possibly be trading up here. Maybe that's something to consider. Is like, does Denver, do they try to be like, hey, we don't want to get in or we don't want to, we want to be sure that we're going to be able to get a quarterback here because they're definitely positioning themselves for that. Maybe they do try to trade up and kind of go that route there. So, and that certainly puts us in position, or maybe Roman Dunze, maybe he falls to that 9 spot, and it's like some team just gets really excited and really wants to nab him. So, all things considered, though, yeah, if we don't get those feelers out there with the 9th overall pick, it's like just get the best player available here at edge, and I think just kind of roll with it there.
For sure. At number 10, the New York Jets. I think a month ago when we did this mock draft, I was heavily looking at an offensive tackle as being kind of the best pick for this slot for New York based on where they're at and where Rodgers is with his recovery from the Achilles. But they did bring over Tyron Smith from the Cowboys to be, basically their new left tackle. We are on a very short timeline with this team. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have year after year to kind of grow with a young tackle or something of that sort of. They need guys that are ready today to win championships, and they do need more options. Besides Garrett Wilson, like through the air. So we talked about these first 9 picks being about 9 like core offensive talents, and one of those guys that I think fit perfectly here would be Brock Bowers out of Georgia. Going over to the Jets, being their tight end, being another weapon for Aaron Rodgers that he can truly depend on. A lot of folks think he's one of the better tight end prospects to ever come out. I've seen him play actually in college at South Carolina, and guy's, a man among boys. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what New York does with this pick. But, given the fact that I'm their GM, I'm getting super aggressive with bringing over, win now players. Like, I want him on my team, and I know Rodgers could use another weapon.
I mean, it totally makes sense, I think, in my opinion. Like you mentioned before, they made some investments in the offensive line. So I think we're looking at possibly like Anola Fashanu or Tulise Fuega. I mean, I think all those players would have made sense here. But yeah, you got Brock Bowers. He's a difference maker, and hopefully Aaron Rodgers is fully healthy. But even if he's not, whether it's Tyler Taylor or Zach Wilson still, if Rodgers gets hurt again, it's like, great, let's just make sure that whoever's at quarterback just has a bunch of weapons to throw to. And yeah, they also got Mike Williams too. So, I think there's probably a feeling that they don't want to trade up for a Roman Dunze or Malik Neighbors, and they're just happy to kind of sit there at 10. So totally makes sense. Just let the draft come to you. And if Brock Bowers is there, like, I would be kind of surprised, honestly, if he isn't taken there for the Jets. And then, yeah, I guess moving on to number 11 here. So, I'm looking at this was the trade that we did earlier, with Minnesota, with 11th and 23rd pick. So for the 4th pick over there. So yeah, we have Arizona picking at number 11 here, and they need to really build up more of that defense, I feel like. And there's some edge rushers here that's available. I think if he's here, Jared Verse, I think he makes total sense for them. Getting more of that pass rush, And they've already made some investments on the defensive line there. I think with Bilal, and then forgetting the other person, but yeah, like several investments there on the defensive tackle side. So I was kind of steering away from like a Josiah Newton or Byron Murphy there. So I think it totally makes sense to get an edge rusher there. And with Jonathan Gannon there too, I think he's definitely going to be focusing on that defense, making life a little bit easier for Kyler Murray. Hopefully when he's healthy and playing there.
Yeah, no, I think with the amount of picks that they're kind of stockpiling here in the first couple rounds, like just go ahead and take the best talent available, off the board for your team. Definitely think it makes sense. I mean, they have so many needs again, like defense, offense. They're just going to go ahead and kind of grab whoever they can. And I do feel like, Verse is definitely one of those, premier edge rushers out of this draft. So go ahead and take them and kind of start helping to build back that foundation brick by brick.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and he's a good high character person, and I think he'd be a good leader for them, for the years to come. So I think it's a good foundational defensive talent to take here. So then, yeah, I guess moving on to number 12 for the Broncos. Who do you got them taking?
Yeah, at number 12, I think we can kind of sit in the hole, not have to make a rash decision trading up, maybe unnecessarily. We've seen other teams do that, ours included, and it kind of backfiring in a lot of ways. But I also think, being Denver, we've taken a pretty massive cap hit with Russell Wilson. We're down picks as it was from the Seattle trade. We need every single pick that we have to be at the best positions, and then we need to go out and get the most impactful players at the most impactful positions that we possibly can. And I think one quarterback that's always kind of stood out from a lot of the conversations throughout this offseason as being a perfect fit with Sean Payton, his offense, is a guy like Bo Nix, somebody who's just kind of on the dime with his accuracy and just being able to kind of facilitate an offense, one that's very structured and kind of also make plays when things break down. I think he's getting a little bit, overshadowed by some of the premier quarterback talent in this draft. But, I think Peyton finally, gets his guy after, a couple seasons here in Denver. And, I think this is the right pick. I mean, whether or not number 12 is the best position to take a guy like Bo Nix is another conversation. But if you are Denver, you're probably not trading down out of fear that he might get sniped. So, just take the pick where you have it and just go with it.
Yeah, and I think it makes total sense. Like I think every mock draft, I feel like Denver Broncos, the Denver Broncos, they've basically been trying to position themselves to take Bo Nix almost at all costs. So they could be trading up. We'll see. I guess what happens there, but if he's there at 12, I don't see him getting past them. At least this is my thinking there. So and yeah, he just makes perfect sense, I think, for Sean Payton and that system that they do there. So just kind of getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands. Like there's a reason why when they had Russell Wilson, they didn't like what was happening there. So yeah, it just makes total sense. I wish that was for Bo Nix's sake, that was probably better infrastructure there for with wide receiver talent and such. But at the end of the day, I think with Sean Payton, one of the better offensive minds in the game there, he'll be okay eventually. So, but yeah, I think Bo Nix won't get past number 12 here.
Got it. Number 13.
Yeah, so number 13, the Raiders. I have a trade here with myself with another odd team here. And I put it through a simulator and it checked out, so all good there. But yeah, I have, the Arizona Cardinals jumping back up a little bit more here. They have the draft capital, I think, is the biggest thing, right? And yes, this team is, rebuilding or building up and everything. But I think when you have the draft capital and there are players there that will just fit you so well, especially in the cornerback position, then you got to take that swing. You got to take those players there. And I'm talking about Quinyon Mitchell. I think he's been moving up the draft board so fast, I think, in the past couple months. And people are, it kind of feels like a Sauce Gardner type of vibe, right? Where maybe didn't play in like the most elite of schools, like in the SEC or something, but just completely dominated and has a lot of the physical traits that you want.
Yeah, I mean, they talk a lot about his ball skills and just his ability to tackle. And, I think while he is a bit raw and he's maybe just a little bit, I don't want to say unproven, but maybe just, unknown to a lot of, the casuals and things like that. I think this is a pick here and a franchise here where it's okay to like try to hit home runs. I think it's like better, like it's in their better interest to try to hit home runs on all of their picks. And while there may be other cornerbacks in this first round that go, or even in this draft that are like more polished, or again come from the bigger school or what have you, it's like I think if you have your eye on a certain player, and if Gannon does see, those traits in Quinion Mitchell and is able to kind of, nurture that, then the more power to him. So, no, I think it's smart. And again, like Arizona's got a lot of capital and will have a lot more if they trade that number 4 pick. So,
Mhm.
I think it's an interesting choice.
Yeah, yeah. And one more point, it's like Jonathan Gannon, right? You look at what he was able to do with those Eagles defenses, a lot of it was built in that secondary and obviously that pass rush, right? And that's just the modern day NFL. And I think he would, fall in love and be one of those coaches that kind of falls in love with a prospect like that. And yeah, when you have a good defensive mind foundation, then it's great to take those chances, take those swings, kind of be like how Andy Reid kind of took that swing with Patrick Mahomes a little bit. It's like Patrick Mahomes was really raw, kind of coming out of college there. Obviously, he had a lot of great stats and stuff, but his mechanics were terrible. So that definitely is where I feel like having a defensive minded coach him up, put the right foundation, right coaching around him makes total sense to kind of take those swings and gambles there. So yeah, I guess moving on to number 14 here. Who do you got for the New Orleans Saints taking?
Yeah, if I'm the Saints here at number 14, I'm smiling ear to ear because the biggest need for our team is the tackle position, and one of the best prospects just fell to us at this spot. So, we're a team right now that's like severely over the cap. I think we have the worst cap position in the NFL. I believe our left tackle, Pete, had left in free agency, and the one we have internally, Trevor Penning, who was supposed to be our next guy in line, really didn't prove himself over the last couple of years. So we're in this spot where we just need a stud, and there's a handful here that are very enticing, very intriguing, but given the fact that Alt and Olufushanu have been kind of in most analysts' eyes as being, the premier tackles of this draft, like we're just going to go ahead and take, Olufushanu here to, be our left tackle of the future. And I think, given where our team is too, like this is a situation where we have a little bit of time maybe to allow him to, get acclimated and kind of be groomed in a lot of ways. Like we don't have to necessarily win now. I don't know if we're necessarily going to win now. So I think this just makes a lot of sense for kind of projecting out over the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably one of the highest stealing tackles out there, I think, in this entire draft, and that's kind of why he's highly touted to be one of the top tackles taken here. So I think it totally makes sense, and I think he has good upside to play left tackle as well and be a solid like potential Pro Bowler there. So and yeah, with the roster that they have right now, it's like yeah, let's see what we can get. Let's see if we can just get the best talent there on the offensive line and kind of just go from there.
No doubt.
Yeah, and then moving on to the Colts here at number 15, they definitely need cornerback. I think they've bounced through some injuries here and there, and then Brents has kind of been like up and down in a way. So I think solidifying the cornerback position makes total sense here. And I talked about Quinion Mitchell, but a lot of people would say the more polished one, at least right now, would be Tyrion Arnold, and I think it totally makes sense out of Alabama. Played top level competition, has the body and physical makeup for a shutdown corner in this league. So pairing him up there with the rest of the defense for the Colts, and then with what they're able to do on offense. Hopefully Anthony Richardson, he has a healthy year. I think it makes total sense to kind of just build around that defense a little bit more and kind of just go from there. So yeah, Arnold here I think makes total sense for the Colts if he falls here.
I think that's a great pick. It's super safe. One of the better, cornerback prospects in this draft. So you're needy for that position. I just think he fits the bill. I think a lot of analysts, consider him the best of this class, but in the same sense, like, just makes a ton of sense for Indianapolis there.
Yeah, for sure. Who do you got at 16 for the Seahawks?
Yeah, for the Seahawks, I kind of debated this with a few different positions and kind of looking at, the defense and, improvements that could be made there. There are some edge rushers out there that are pretty appealing. Could look into the secondary. But overall, I think we still have needs on the offensive line here. And there's one line prospect that is just kind of, rose up, the ranks, I feel like, throughout this entire, off season through the combine. Really separates himself from the next player at his position, but we need a center, and I think Jackson Powers Johnson makes a lot of sense for us. I mean, he's a physical freak there, would fit, really well on our line. Somebody we could, obviously, you know, uh, wait to kind of see if, he can be, a leader. He doesn't have to necessarily take the reins and be, kind of the standout there in year one. But I think in a lot of ways, he just separates himself a little bit in that position, and it's one that's scarce for us. So I think it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I see him going here in a lot of mock drafts, and I feel like he's kind of like that kind of prospect that the Seahawks would take. Just a lot. I think everybody's in love with him in a way. Like, how many people are in love with the center? I feel like, I mean, this isn't Jason Kelsey, so but at the same time, a lot of people like his physical makeup, what he was able to do in college, his PFF ratings from both the run and pass, and I think it's a slam dunk if he lands here and is able to work with the team and roster and coaching that they have in place for them. So yeah, it's a great pick.
Number 17.
Yeah, number 17 here, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They got to take corner. Like, I don't see too much talent there on the cornerback side of the ball, and that's just one of the most important positions I think in the NFL these days. And this cornerback here has got good length and all. From Clemson, Nate Wiggins, but I think he has the physical makeup and talent to do well in the NFL. And I think he had a pretty decent combine as well, and has the physical makeup. So I think this is definitely one of those picks you can definitely take for Jacksonville here. If any of those cornerbacks are here, just take them and don't look back, because they need some secondary help right now, right? And yeah, I think Wiggins here makes total sense for them.
Yeah, they've lost a handful of players in their secondary to free agency this year. Was already a weakness of Jacksonville's, and if you're looking at what Houston just did this offseason on wide receivers and building up that offensive game even more, like, this is a definite need there, and you're grabbing a guy who's more polished among the cornerback options out there. High IQ from what they say. Maybe lacks a little bit of physicality from a tackling perspective. They said maybe a little bit less burst than the other cornerbacks, but in a lot of ways, he still finds himself, in the top three of that position, kind of going off the board in the first round. So I think a lot of folks are really high on him. And yeah, again, you got to draft for need. I think if you're Jacksonville, especially if you're trying to, get back into the playoffs, get back into contention. So no, I think it's a very good pick there.
Sounds good. Who do you got? Cincinnati Bengals taking there at 18.
Yeah, man. This team of ours has a few needs. I think first and foremost, we got to make sure that our boy Joe is super healthy, well protected. Has all the weapons that he can possibly have to his disposal here. I mean, I think wide receivers a consideration that we're looking at. I don't know if the talent on the board is as appealing to me, being the GM, as maybe some of the tackles that have somehow fallen to me in this spot. But there's a guy that I probably considered going up, more or less top 10 in most other mock drafts, and now kind of slid, further and further down this board. But, to me, I think the obvious choice is Talise Fuaga here. One of the bigger body tackles in this draft. I think he has been kind of shooting up, the boards in terms of his like average draft position in the mock drafts that I've looked at, but you know, getting that anchor tackle, to help protect Joe, for more and more years to come. I think right now is an important building block piece. I think we still have Higgins and we still have, Jamar Chase on the outside. So for me, like another receiver is a little bit of a luxury. Um, I'm also looking at the defensive side of the ball. So if we could, find the interior defender or an edge rusher of some kind to kind of, take there, that might make sense too. But I just think giving, putting everything into consideration, I think Fuaga is like the safest choice for a team that is trying to go back to the get back to the Super Bowl as soon as we can.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And, I know they got, was it like Orlando Brown and such, over there now, but at the same time, they're kind of just getting a little bit older there. And I feel like they need, with the current contract situation with, Higgins, obviously they have him for at least one more year, but that's not always guaranteed what's going to happen with him next. But I think they need to get younger on the offensive line, have to have, a premier tackle that's in a rookie contract, just again, with the contracts that they have there with Chase and Joe Burrow for sure. And then, yeah, who knows what happens with Higgins there. So I think that's eventually what they need to be moving to. And yeah, Flaga would be, I think, a dream come true if he falls to them.
For sure, number 19.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of dreams coming true here, I feel like with the Los Angeles Rams at 19 here, you know, Aaron Donald retiring, one of the GOATs at the defensive tackle position. I feel like for them, I got to take one of the best defensive tackles in college football this past year, and Byron Murphy. He has one of the better win rates in terms of, and also getting pressure towards the quarterback in all of college football. Kind of has that small yet physical type of build, similar to an Aaron Donald. Maybe not Aaron Donald. Like I think Aaron Donald's like a 6-pack. A guy's like 300 pounds. So maybe not that, but still really, quick, speedy, and physical, and gets to the quarterback. And I think that's not to say that's going to be exactly what's going to happen there. Kind of a replacing Aaron Donald, but as much as possible, I think that's as best you can do there. And I think it makes total sense from them getting a young rookie stud there in Byron Murphy. So yeah, Byron Murphy there for the Rams at 19.
No, I think that makes sense. I mean, the biggest hole now is is where Aaron Donald left it. So this is a completely different team and forever will be with him out, from the squad. But yeah, I mean, if you can plug in a guy like Byron Murphy, like a complete physical freak, explosive, great athlete, right up the gut, I think that makes a lot of sense. And, I think Dallas is pretty disappointed that, Byron doesn't fall to them there. But in a lot of ways, yeah, I mean, I feel like he'll do his best to kind of fill the shoes of an Aaron Donald and hopefully keep that Rams team afloat on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, man, definitely a huge blow to lose him, and we'll just kind of see how they repair themselves.
Yeah, for sure. Who do you got next there for Pittsburgh at 20?
Yeah, so for Pittsburgh, again, we have some needs here, but the offensive line was graded bottom half of the NFL. A lot of changing pieces. Brought in a new tackle last year that was, serviceable, but in the same sense, like could obviously use like some real anchors here. Troy Fontenot, out of Washington's kind of continued to move up boards in a lot of ways. There's a lot of interesting prospects here on the board. We could look at a guy like J.C. Latham, Marius Mims, others, but I just feel like Fontenot's got probably the most potential behind him. I feel like there's been just a lot of helium in where he's been kind of drafted in a lot of these mock drafts, and in a lot of ways, we just need the most trusted option there, given the fact that we're bringing in 2 new quarterbacks or changing out a lot of pieces on our wide receiving core. Like there's a lot that's kind of in flux, and we just need something that's completely predictable, sustainable. So I think Fontenot is the pick there.
Yeah, I like him there. I mean, obviously, ideally, it'd be like obviously you like a Jackson Powers Johnson, but if Fontenot is there, I feel like that's a pretty decent, I guess, consolation prize to have him there, right? So he's definitely been kind of under the radar in some areas, I think, compared to say like some other, tackles and such. Because I think he's projected, kind of to move from tackle to the guard spot in the NFL. But we'll see what happens in that front. But everything that we've seen, at least from was playing in Washington, was top of the tier there. So I think it's a solid pick overall. And then
Sounds good. Number 21.
yeah, and then moving on to the Miami Dolphins, they need some line help. They've made some investments in the past, and maybe it's one of those. We'll see kind of what happens there. Austin Jackson, right, a couple years first round pick there, but I'm looking at the draft board and I see there's still some pretty decent offensive line help here. They lost Robert Hunt, to the Panthers. Which they couldn't pay a guard $20 million a year, not with that squad that they have there. So totally makes business sense there. So I see them taking J.C. Latham, from Alabama. Has a lot of the physical traits to be a stud there on the offensive line. A lot of people that kind of had him, even up to like maybe number 10, before the Jets kind of took or solidified more of their offensive line there. So J.C. Latham, I think he makes a ton of sense if he does fall here to the Dolphins. Just again, they just need some line help, some physicality there. Mike McDaniels, he really likes running the ball and kind of being, getting his offensive linemen rolling and such. So I think having him, J.C. Latham there, I think if he's here, like that could be kind of a steal. I feel like for the Dolphins in this position.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is another one of those anchor tackles that will go in the first round. Teams that are needy on their offensive lines will be prioritizing a guy like Latham. The order for a lot of the guys feel like that we're throwing out as offensive tackle, prospects here, I feel like they could all be juggled, in the draft the next couple of weeks of where they actually fall. And I think that's the, kind of the beauty of that position, at least if you're looking for one in that first round. There's a good amount of depth here at the upper echelon of this draft. And yeah, I mean, comes from a high pedigree school, like Alabama. I think like he's not going to be, afraid to, you know, play for a team like Miami, who's got Super Bowl aspirations. He may have familiarity with Tua Tagovailoa too, maybe Jalen Waddle. I'm not sure, but no, seems to be the right choice for this team, considering Tua's concussion history and just the fact that they've got that great running game. Like just make it more and more powerful, and yeah, they should be pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. Who do you got next for the Eagles at 22?
Yeah, so the Eagles have lost a bit of I would say defensive you know, uh, edge rush types, or even just kind of that front seven, type as well. I feel like every year they're kind of, rebolstering their line in a lot of ways. And, Fletcher Cox is coming back, but he's kind of reaching his twilight years. They lost Hassan Reddick in a trade to the Jets. So I feel like they just need, some younger guys, some, high upside type plays here in this spot. And Leatu Latu makes a lot of sense for them. I feel like, Philly has a pretty good, rotation, I would say, of front seven players, and they continue to draft there, and they draft pretty high. How would I put it? They use high end picks to go after these types, and I just feel like, he just needs to kind of get settled in. If he's part of a rotation, like that's even better because you kind of take away some of that injury risk that he comes with. But in terms of skill and like what everyone said is like this guy is the best edge rusher, coming into this draft. I think everyone's just nervous about, his injury history and where, that'll be as he, plays his way through the NFL. But, in terms of technique and, getting around the edge and really any of those, skills involved in it, like he's the premier guy for this position. So I think it would make a lot of sense, and it would just be another kind of Eagles type pick there, where it's like this like smack you in the face, great talent is just falling into their laps yet again. And yeah, I can see this happening.
Yeah, this could be kind of like a Jalen Carter type of situation. Like, how do they end up with him? Like, how does this team, like, how does Howie Roseman kind of just like manufacture this? But he kind of just doesn't have to do anything. And yeah, there's gonna be some defensive talent there, for the Eagles to pick there eventually. So if Latu's there, like that would be a great haul. A lot of people would say he's the best, just pure pass rusher in this draft, and he's gotten a couple, a dozen sacks I think every season the past couple of seasons. Has had some history of injury, and maybe that seems to be the reason why his draft stock has kind of fallen. So, but high risk, good reward. I think for a player like Latu here, for a really talented, Eagles team, now that they got Big Fangio, it's like you got one of the best defensive minds in the game there. So could be great to see what he does with all these pieces here. So, but yeah, I think that'd be a great pick.
No doubt. Who's your next pick?
Yeah, so got Arizona here now. With the via that trade with the Vikings previously. So at 23, I got to take wideout here. I think part of my thinking was that, hey, look, some of those stud wideouts that are going to be taking over there, let other teams kind of fight for them, and kind of just let the draft kind of come to you there. So with all these trade backs, like there's still a stud there at wideout that a lot of people, it's like, yeah, again, if this was not your just your normal kind of draft, now with like three stud wideouts, this guy probably would have been like one of the top picks taken in the draft there. So Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU, I think he's kind of taken a back seat a little bit just because he's Malik Neighbors' teammate, but I mean the guy's what 6'3", 200 pounds, runs a 4.3, 38-inch vert. Can track the ball and get the ball deep, like just as good as anybody out there. And without like Marquise Brown and everything, it's like, yeah, the Cardinals definitely need some wideout talent there and help. So getting that stud just to blow off the blow the roof off the top there, and then also has a good body and everything. Could definitely develop a little bit more of the route running, but at the same time, I think they had got some some intermediate talent there with with the tight end there, McBride and such. So I think they'll be fine there. But yeah, having somebody that has a lot of potential and explosiveness, I think can really help out Kyler Murray here.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And like in hindsight, now trading that number 4 pick, Brian Thomas is a good consolation prize as far as having a wide receiver, but then also having 2 premier defensive players to go with him. Like that sounds like a better proposition for me as Arizona than it would just taking number 4 off the board. So, cheers to them. But, losing Marquise Brown, obviously Kyler Murray's top weapon, kind of replacing him with another vertical speed threat like Thomas just makes a lot of sense. It's somebody who's going to come, on a rookie contract too. So you can continue to kind of build around the offense, build around the defense a little bit more. And hopefully, Kyler just gets back to being himself and kind of stays upright, not injured this year. So kind of see how that pairing would do together. But man, yeah, you got to give a round of applause to Arizona in this first round. I mean, I think that's kind of cleaning up. And I think they also have a high, second round choice too. So, tons of interesting things that this team can do. And it is one that we've kind of put on the watch or the radar as far as like them. And I feel like Washington are 2 of the more interesting teams in this draft this year with, some really high caliber picks and like what they can possibly do with them.
Yeah, and again, this is like where I feel like they can take those swings again because they have a ton. They have 11 picks at least to start in this draft, and probably projected to get more. If this whole like JJ McCarthy thing kind of comes about, getting if the Vikings trade up to that 4th spot there. So a ton of draft capital, and it's like when you have a ton of draft capital, you do want to take those super talented players in this first round and second round there. So. They addressed the offensive line a little bit there, with Jonah Williams and then obviously Paris Johnson Jr. last year. I think he does move over to left tackle this year. So, and then just kind of takes it from there. But they definitely need some weapons. And I think there's a reason why they kind of just let Marquise Brown just go, basically. It's just, I think they feel pretty good about the offensive weapons that they can get here in the first couple rounds.
For sure. With my next pick at 24, Dallas. We just came off one of the most embarrassing losses in playoff history for our franchise. We are a team that, on paper and throughout the regular season, are set up for Super Bowl glory every single year. Just looking down my roster, I've got one of the better, rush attacks on the defensive side of the ball in the game. Had one of the better secondaries from last year. A guy like Deron Bland just taking everything out of the air. We do lose Leighton Vander Esch, so I am looking at linebacker, but to spend a really high, first round pick on a linebacker doesn't really sit really, well with me. I feel like I can wait and maybe get that in the second, third round, have them be super playable on my team as starters. But then, again, I'm looking around the offense, and a lot of people are going to poke holes in my quarterback. But we are wed to him. He is our guy until you know either his contract is over or he happens to completely tank again in this year. But I've got to do everything in my power to protect this man. CD Lamb, Brandon Cooks, should be enough to get the job done. We are looking for running back, but again, I'm not going to spend a very high pick on a running back here. So, give me the best tackle off the board at this spot. I will take Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. I feel like, again, we are in this crop of offensive tackles that I feel like are very switchable here in these different positions. But again, I just lost Tyron Smith to the Jets. That's a huge loss for us. We do need to get younger on the line. We do need to have guys that are, helping to repair a line that was probably at its pinnacle when Ezekiel Elliott was still a stud for us behind, center. So, that has been a little bit of time ago in terms of contracts and how much churn goes on in the NFL. So give me a premier offensive tackle to help groom with this team, and hopefully Dak starts to turn the corner and we can start winning some playoff games.
Yeah, no, I think it totally makes sense. I think they go either offensive line or defensive line here. I know Jerzon Newton's also available too, so it's either going to be one of those two, I think. And like you were mentioning before, Tyron Smith is gone now. There's definitely talks about moving Tyler Smith over there, who he's played pretty decently from the guard position at like basically at an All-Pro level. And he has the size and length to be at least serviceable there in the tackle position. So we'll see. But Guyton I think makes total sense. He's got the length. I think he's like 6'7", like 320, 330 or something like that, and has pretty good pass protection skills overall and built for that. So coming out of Oklahoma, I think that's always a good. It always feels like the Cowboys selected several Oklahoma Sooners there, so it totally makes sense. Getting that nearby football manufacturing school there. So. Yeah, and then I guess moving on to that team I don't like to talk about all the time, but I will always for this time being, the Green Bay Packers here with the 25th pick. So they made some changes here and there, I think, but they got Xavier McKinney to kind of boost up their secondary. I think they go a little bit more on there, at least the opposite side of McKinney. Like, I don't think, was it Anthony Johnson? I don't think he's like the answer there. So I feel like there's a player out here that, a lot of people say he makes almost perfect sense for the Packers. His build, his scrappiness, his smart skills, which I hate. But Cooper DeJean from Iowa, he's been kind of thrown back and forth between cornerback and then also safety, kind of being that hybrid in a way that the modern day NFL kind of goes to at the Kyle Hamilton type. But you're going to get a tough physical safety, smart, can make all the right plays, and I think that's kind of exactly what this Packer teams and this defense needs in that case. And it definitely is that battle between, I guess, offensive line and safety. I think that's kind of what they're bouncing in. They're, I think I'm looking at their depth chart. It's pretty thin on the offensive line, but I think they can address some of those needs more so in the later rounds. I think they just need more depth, in my opinion. But if they do get a starter, great. But yeah, Cooper DeJean, I think, makes total sense for the Green Bay Packers. I see a lot of mock drafts kind of just grabbing him, like, yeah, that's a very Packers type of draft pick there. So yeah, Cooper DeJean to the Packers.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to pair up with Lucas Van Ness as well from Iowa. But I do think it also makes sense for team fit and everything like that, just in terms of, his versatility as well in the secondary. I mean, I feel like a lot of folks are talking about him as, potential corner. They're also talking him as, possible safety. So gives them some options to play with there. And like you said, they've got McKinney, they've got Jair Alexander, they've got, some pretty notable names in their secondary, but that would make him even stronger in a division that is getting better through the air. You're looking at the Bears with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. Minnesota obviously has Jay Jetta, and then you've got Detroit with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and it's only getting stronger from their competitors, and the more fortified they can make their defenses, the better. I do see your point on the offensive line with them cutting David Bakhtiari. Probably going to need another tackle, and there are a couple options here, but no, I do think that makes sense, and he is probably falling a little bit further than he may be drafted come draft time.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, I think in the, before all the combine stuff, before all the conversations about and all the mock drafts that happened before, he was like the top defensive back taken now, and he's kind of just slid in here. So if the Packers, if they are able to get that first defensive back taken in the draft that he was predicted to do earlier, then I think that's a steal for them. And yeah, like I mentioned before, you can address the offensive line more so in the later rounds there. But yeah, there's definitely some, they can definitely make good strides, I think, either way going for offensive line or safety here. But for me, I went best player available here.
Makes sense. At 26, I am the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have also a lot of holes on this team that need to be filled. There are a lot of different options I feel like I could go with in this spot. I do find a lot of value in the fact that if we are to take an offensive lineman, it might be nice to target one that has kind of multi-position flexibility. Wirfs is the only sure thing that I feel like we have on our line to protect Baker Mayfield. And looking at Graham Barton out of Duke, I mean, he's got the ability, I feel, to play possibly a guard position in the NFL. Maybe it's a center. But he also kind of stands out now as being one of the better, offensive line prospects here, on the board. Could look at defense. I mean, we are looking for edge rushers. So, guys like, Braylon Trice or others, could come with some sort of appeal. Tight end, I'm not seeing much that really stands out here at the back end of the first round. But in any sense, I feel like Tampa, winning a playoff game against a very, how would I put it, breakable Eagles team toward the end of the year was encouraging, but it still feels like a team that's like multiple pieces away from being true competitors. So, this pick could go any sort of way with the amount of needs that this team has, but I feel like this is a very surefire, safe pick here and one that will kind of help continue to build that foundation.
Yeah, I agree. I think they definitely have, I feel like, some young talent on the defensive side of the ball that maybe pushes them away from drafting, defense, at least in my opinion, I think. So from where I think they could go is probably at the offensive line, like you mentioned. And yeah, Graham Barton, I think, makes total sense here. So it really is depending on like kind of what they want to do. They are in a 3-4 defense, so like a Chop Robinson could be another option if they want to elevate that. But they got some pretty decent production from Diaby there. Still got Randy Gregory as well. So it's like they have some talent there. They did lose Shaq Barrett, although Shaq Barrett kind of wasn't exactly his former self and such. But yeah, they definitely have lost a little bit of that edge. So if they do want to upgrade that, then great, they can do that. But yeah, I think offensive line for where they're at right now, like you mentioned, they're it's okay here and there. But yeah, Tristan Wirfs really is like the only stud there. So yeah, upgrading in the first round with a Barton. A lot of people compare Barton to like a Peter Skoronski in that played left tackle, has positional versatility, but just has shorter arms, but can be a stud at least. Maybe the guard or center position. So we'll see what happens there. But I think, yeah, he's going to be a good talent here in the later rounds, or later first round, I should say. Moving on to the Raiders, who I had trading back, and there's a reason for that. So the whole idea is that I had the whole trade back with the Arizona Cardinals. I think my thinking is that the Raiders, I think they do want to get like a Michael Penix. I think they want to get a Michael Penix here. So I think they get Michael Penix, but they don't want to necessarily draft him, in that position at 13. And I think they're also thinking that none of the teams in between 13 and really the rest of the first round, honestly, wants to draft like a rookie quarterback there. So that's what I'm feeling. I don't think that they're like sold on necessarily Aiden O'Donnell and Gardner Minshew. I like him, but I think there's this like I think he has like this contagious smell of his, basically saying that he's like a stopgap quarterback of some sort. So my thinking is they go with Michael Penix. They get more draft capital moving back, and they're still able to take their quarterback for the future. A lot of great arm talent, just like can make all the throws. Really, obviously the questions are his injury history, similar to like Watu. I feel like he's the equivalent to the quarterback side. Great couple past seasons, but obviously the injury history kind of deters his upside or his draft positioning here. So, but yeah, can make all the throws, and with Luke Getsy there, and then obviously they have great wide receiver talent in Jacoby Myers, and then also Devontae Adams, Michael Myers as well at the tight end position. I feel like this team is setting themselves up to be like a nice passing team here. So that's what I'm thinking. Could they also upgrade on? I think cornerback was another position, possibly, but yeah, I think they can address that with the draft capital that they are able to get here with that trade with Arizona.
Yeah, it's a risky proposition. You've got to hope that the Saints, the Rams, maybe the Dolphins, like some teams that are pretty smart, maybe have a quarterback in place, but are, understanding of what Michael Penix could be in the NFL. Like they may swoop in and grab a guy like him as their, quarterback 1.5 or something of that sort. But no, I think it's also a fair gamble to make because you are sitting there at 13. That could be a very intriguing pick for a team that wants to trade up. And kind of looking at the landscape and what's most likely to happen, like are most of those teams that I just named most likely to grab a quarterback in their spots? Like probably not, because they're all competing for playoffs, or they just have other needs that kind of stand out more than the guy under center today. So that's that. I would say Gardner Minshew, like you mentioned, stopgap, kind of becoming a journeyman of sorts. But I think he plays a really great role. I think he is a very important quarterback in the game because of what he's able to do. He's kind of that bridge guy to rookie, getting their feet wet. He probably does a lot behind the scenes that we don't see in terms of what he's sharing in that sense. But anytime there's been an injury, Minshew usually comes in a pinch and he'll get you wins. Like he'll get you, I don't know what his record is to date, but it's got to be somewhere around 500, I feel, because, anytime I've seen him, he's usually doing a pretty good job at like making that position stable so that it's not, a glaring weakness of the team. And he's usually able to make those teams very competitive. So I thought that was a pretty smart signing for them in the short term. But no, this all feels right. I had Penix in one of our earlier mocks, going at number 13 in that slot. It feels like a reach there, perhaps, but I think a lot of people are very high on this guy and, see the talent that a lot of us do. So if the Raiders are able to do what you just did and pull that off, like, impressive.
I know, right? Like that would be impressive. And Gardner Minshew, like you were talking before, 22 and 27, right? But he was playing for some pretty bad teams, I think, and that's. But I just recall like a lot of his games, they were just ultra competitive or close when there was a perception that they were just going to be kind of blowouts there. So, I honestly would love to see Gardner Minshew just have an honest chance at a starting position job, but I feel like I just have doubts that NFL GMs don't feel the same way with regards to that. But Uncle Rico, gotta love him, but yeah, he just screams stopgap, I feel like. And yeah, I don't think that they're sold on Aiden O'Connell as a long-term solution. And with Michael Penix Jr. here, I think he can work well with whatever Luke Getsy wants, better than honestly Justin Fields and kind of what he was doing. Because it always felt like, from the Luke Getsy standpoint, right? A lot of people, a lot of the NFL likes Luke Getsy and what he brings to the table. It just seems like him and the strengths of Justin Fields just did not mesh well. They tried to make Justin Fields kind of throw out of the pocket more, and that just was not his strength. Then you bring in a Michael Penix Jr., where that is perfectly his strength, and he's very comfortable making all the throws in the pocket there, reading the defense, and getting the ball out. So I think that's a match made in heaven. I feel like just a better overall fit at the quarterback and then offensive coordinator position role there. So yeah, I think if they are able to trade back, get Michael Penix Jr., more draft capital, great. And for me, honestly, I would roll with the gamble. I don't know if the Rams are willing to, I guess, take a quarterback in that first round, given, there's some other needs now that have come about, with, Aaron Donald there. And, now I'm seeing more and more mock drafts of both Jerzon Newton and Byron Murphy being, available at that time. So, we'll see kind of what happens there. But yeah, I feel like there's just a lot more needs. And yeah, if they really need to get a quarterback, they can get another quarterback in the later rounds. But I feel like Michael Penix, like, he definitely has starting caliber potential. It's obviously just, what situation he can be. And I feel like the Raiders would be a good opportunity for him.
Absolutely. Pair him with Devontae Adams. I feel like that's such a great security blanket to have for a rookie quarterback. And like it's what Will Levis is getting with, DeAndre Hopkins, maybe Calvin Ridley too in Tennessee. It's kind of like what Caleb Williams will be getting with the Bears. Like, just to walk into a situation where you've got some real studs at the outside, like, it just makes your job that much easier. So this makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to see these quarterbacks all go in the first round. I don't think we're going to see them slip to the second. Like, some teams are going to step up and grab their guy. But Penix will be a part of that, I think.
Yeah, no. And that's, I think, the whole conundrum is, like, honestly, obviously, where are they going to go? But, a lot of draft boards, a lot of mock drafts that we're seeing now is kind of what we're doing. And if, those first 4 quarterbacks are taken off the board, and then obviously we got Bo Nix, and then we also got Michael Penix Jr., there's just some teams that they obviously don't need a quarterback. And it's like, there's a lot of talented players there, a lot of teams with high amounts of draft capital. Like I mentioned, the Arizona Cardinals, albeit they're not the best team, but they can definitely trade up, take some swings here. I know the Rams have more draft capital than they've had in previous years, so maybe they can. Interesting one would also be like the Detroit Lions or the 49ers. Like, they have a pretty good amount of draft capital given their, where they are, the pecking order of the, good teams out there. So they can just be like, hey, we want stud offensive lineman, we want an edge rusher. Let's take the best one in the draft, and trade up there. So I think that that's just kind of how things are shaking up, at least in my opinion, for this first round here.
Yeah. At number 28, I'm the Buffalo Bills. It's a sad end to an awe-inspiring era of football. I feel like an era of football that, in a lot of ways has come with a lot of disappointments for the franchise, with the expectations that were also side by side with that. So, tons of interesting players on our roster are now gone. We lost majority of the guys in our secondary. Today trading Stephon Diggs, out of town to Houston for, future second, had to package up a couple extra picks to get him out. But in a lot of ways, we've been talking about this for a while as a team. I mean, the last couple of years, his body language, especially in big playoff games, has been pretty negative. He has a lot to say, on social media about, his status and about, his role in, our success and Josh Allen's success. And in a lot of ways, I think we were all just too tired of it. We want to kind of turn the page, find a guy who's maybe going to come in with a little bit more of a positive attitude, kind of be a guy Josh can consistently grow with. And, we just need to continue to get better as a team. And, here the pick seems pretty obvious to us. I mean, we do need a wide receiver. We are down men at this point. We've lost Gabe Davis as well. So we're going to look at a guy that, we feel like can be that, deep ball target, kind of be that big body possession receiver that we're looking for. I think a guy like A.D. Mitchell fits the bill here at 6'4", 200 pounds. He's a very fluid, runner. He's got a lot of finesse. At times you talk about his, lack of consistency. We'll have to see, what he looks like in the NFL. But in terms of his upside and, his potential, like, we need to take a big swing here at wide receiver. We need to go with the guy who can be the alpha in this class, to be honest with you, because we don't have a lot of options at this point, and we still have high aspirations as an offense and as a team. So, Josh has one of the bigger arms in the game. Could be interesting to see who else we could pair him with, like a burner like Xavier Worthy or, Troy Franklin, or maybe a more possession, high IQ type like Alad McConkey. But in a lot of ways, this pick could go in a lot of directions for us. But I just feel like, going with AD Mitchell gives us probably the most upside of the choices available to us.
Yeah, I think either AD Mitchell or, and I know we talked about this before, possibly trading up for Brian Thomas Jr. I think both of those could be possibilities. Also, the wide receiver room, like it's a little bit on the shorter end, right? They got Curtis Samuel, who's definitely much more of that slot kind of wide out, and then Khalil Shakur, kind of a similar mold. So I feel like they need more of that X wide out. No Gabe Davis too. So it's like they need somebody that can just go down the field, get those jump balls, be physical, be able to get a good release. So if I'm them, I would probably try to trade up for Brian Thomas Jr. He's just a more fine-tuned type of wideout, more developed, I think, in my opinion, than AD Mitchell. Not to say AD Mitchell can't be that wideout. Definitely has the physical traits, just being able to do that on a consistent basis more so of. So I feel like it's either going to be one of those two wide receivers that they take here in this draft. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if they just do that or if they kind of just go all speed and Swifty there. So
Yeah, I think the position that we're in right now with, the fact that we've had to unload a lot of, a lot of guys because we didn't have the cap flexibility to go out and re-sign them. Like we are a team with many needs even outside of the wide receiver position, to where, if there is a trade of multiple draft picks for us to move up the board, like we still need to have enough in reserve to kind of fill out our other slots and make sure we have bona fide starters there. At this point, this may be a step back year for us as a franchise, to be honest with you. Like we are competing against a Jets team that is reviving itself, if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, of course. And then we've had Miami, breathing down our necks for the last couple of years. So, this could be a very interesting, season here in the AFC East, and, may behoove us to just bite the bullet and, take a step back. Maybe we're just a wild card type team. Maybe we happen to not make the playoffs, but in a lot of ways, like we need to get back to where we can be with a guy like Josh Allen under center.
yeah, I agree. I mean, it just seems like I don't know. Maybe in this next season, obviously we'll see what happens with the rookie wideout, but it definitely feels like Dalton Kincaid, like he's probably gonna get more. I'm trying to think of the fantasy perspective. Like Kincaid's probably gonna get a lot of looks there in the red zone, and also like Cook as well. I feel like there's just gonna be a lot more touches going around. I think and spreading the love. Similar, not exactly 1-on-1, but similar to like when Tyreek Hill kind of left Patrick Mahomes. They just found other options there. So, but I don't know. We'll see what happens if they're able to kind of, you know, refill that arsenal that they had there with Stephon Diggs, who, with all the semantics in it, or with all the drama that he had, like was kind of like a top 5 wide receiver though at the same time. So, but yeah, it sounds like they just wanted to move on. We're kind of sick of it, and it'll be interesting and fun. I think what he's able to do there with the Texans and CJ Stroud, like that's going to be pretty awesome. I think what they're doing up there.
For sure.
Yeah, and then I guess moving on here to number 29, you got the Detroit Lions. Their defense, I think, is just what needs to be addressed here. So, I was contemplating like a Jerzon Newton here, but I think they have some talent there in the defensive tackle position, some younger talent as well. So I feel like maybe they kind of nix that and kind of go on either edge or cornerback. I went with edge here. I just feel like the person I have here, I think fits kind of what they're looking for more so of. He's been rising up, like one of the fastest rising defensive talents at the edge position I've seen in recent draft history. I'm talking about Darius Robinson out of Missouri. 6'5", 285-ish or 290, I think. Like definitely on the larger side from the defensive edge position, but Everything I've seen him from the combine to also the Senior Bowl, like stands out like a man amongst boys. Just was always able to win on those one-on-one drills. Yeah, in the Senior Bowl, and those things do kind of matter because they're playing against people of their peer level, of the same talent type of level, and you definitely see those fast rises there. And you had pretty good production there in college as well. Has all the physical traits, and I think he just kind of embodies like has a high motor as well. I think he kind of just embodies what they're looking for the Detroit Lions there. So I think that would be just a great pick, taking Darius Robinson here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it could go the two ways you're describing. Get the best edge rusher on the board, or continue to build on that secondary that's gotten a little bit gutted this offseason with the losses of CJ, GJ, and then Cam Sutton getting released due to some field problems and things like that. And the secondary really did get exposed in that second half of the 49ers game. So in a lot of ways, got to kind of shore up some of those issues if they're trying to be Super Bowl bound again. But you're able to establish enough pressure up front with the pairing of him and Aiden Hutchinson, like that could be pretty interesting. So we'll just have to see what they do. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll have to see how this whole offseason shakes out for the Lions to see like how competitive of a football team they're going to be. I think their offense is going to come back pretty strong like it was last year, but it's that defense that I think makes them, a Super Bowl or just a playoff team. Like there's a pretty wide variety of outcomes that they could experience this upcoming year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it'll depend, I think, on how confident they feel about the secondary as is. They made some offseason, acquisitions there with Carlton Davis, and then also I think Emmanuel Mosley too. I think back from injury. I think so. I think both of those defensive backs should help them, and I think they alleviate their, I guess, fears there. But this is a team that, even though they have Aiden Hutchinson, they weren't the best in terms of pass rush, and I think that's where they need some sort of defensive line help there. So yeah, I think Darius Robinson is the answer there, and then their acquisitions in the offseason should help a little bit in their secondary, and then they can obviously address more secondary help in the later rounds.
Gotcha. On to number 30, we are the Baltimore Ravens. We came out and put up a pretty big stinker in the playoffs. Didn't really run the ball. Didn't really show what we were kind of built on in the playoff game that we had. Going against the Chiefs at home after a really great run throughout the regular season. I think what's most important for us is just get refocused, get back to the ground and pound when we got a guy like Lamar Jackson, bring over a guy like Derrick Henry. We're building a pretty good complementary game in the passing, aspects of our offense with Zay Flowers and, hopefully having Mark Andrews, fully healthy. But again, another building block guy, a guy that's probably going to go, anywhere from the top, 3 to maybe the top 7 offensive tackles that come off the board here. Guy's an absolute monster, 6'7", 325 pounds. I mean, he's got definitely the frame and, we've heard the explosiveness to be, top tier tackle in this game in Amarius Mims out of Georgia. Think he fits in just perfectly, be an anchor on the line, really help us kind of move defenders, as well as having, Derrick Henry to kind of plow through guys in his twilight years here. Should be a lot of fun. If anything, they say he could use a lot of work in the pass blocking game and just in his balance overall. So, the fact that we have Lamar who can get out and scramble, like I think that's a weakness we can accept, especially at this slot. And it's just a safe choice for our franchise, and we usually do pretty well at drafting good guys.
Yeah, this would be a match made in heaven. I think he fits exactly what they're looking for from the tackle position. Big physical specimen, can move a little bit too, but is a train wrecker, and I think that's exactly what they're looking for. Don't have Morgan Moses anymore, so obviously I think they're looking to upgrade there. They have some young talent, but obviously just not as proven. I feel like, or still maybe developing. And yeah, if Amarius Mims falls here, like that would just be tremendous and everything. So I think that would be an awesome pickup, slam dunk in terms of this draft here. But what do you expect from the Baltimore Ravens in the drafts, right?
That's us, man. That's us. So who do you got for 31?
Yeah, I got the Niners. I did contemplate trying to figure out if there was a trade partner. Just couldn't nab one there. So, but they got to go offensive line. They got to go offensive line. We saw what happened in the Super Bowl. They let Chris Jones kind of just walk right through there. So that's like the one major weakness of this team. This ultra talented team is the offensive line there, especially on the right side. So I have them taking Kingsley Suamataya. I think he's got a great potential there. Big, physical, and I think he starts out maybe in the right tackle side with potential maybe moving over to the left tackle side when Trent Williams. I think he's gonna be like 37 or something like that this coming season. Like you got to think about long-term solutions there. So possibly having him move to the left tackle eventually, but yeah, they got to address the line in some capacity. And I saw him kind of just fall here, and I was like, I think that makes sense. I think from a draft position perspective, it makes sense for him to be taken here from the Niners. But I would not be surprised if the Niners are like, you know what, we're only a couple pieces there on the offensive line that we just need to upgrade. Let's see if we can move and get like a Graham Barden or a Tower Guyton or J.C. Latham there. Like any of those players would be tremendous, like you were mentioning. A lot of great offensive line talent, I think, in this first round. But yeah, Niners, I think Kingsley, Swamataya, I think can fit them pretty well for sure.
No, it sounds good. I mean, definitely, yeah, thinner offensive line, I think. Jordan Morgan maybe is another name to throw out there, but in the same sense, like I feel like going through a mock draft already with this team, it seems like the one area that definitely needs the most help overall. I mean, very fortified defense. They have a quarterback that I think is very playable and should get some good run there. Obviously, have a lot of weapons to go with on the offensive side of the ball. So yeah, definitely more protection is needed. And if it makes sense for them to make like a tactical trade just to maximize their pick value, if they can get an extra pick with it, whether they're moving down, moving up, whatever it could be. We'll have to see, but no, I think it's the right position and the right fit.
Yeah, for sure. All right, who you got with the last pick in the first round for the Kansas City Chiefs, defending Super Bowl champs?
Yeah. So I guess with this pick, I feel like it could go in two different ways. We do have a second round pick. This is a pretty deep wide receiver class. That is one thing, though, that definitely stood out from us in the regular season of last year was we didn't have the amount of reliable weapons that we probably needed to kind of get ourselves over the hump. That said, we did happen to trade we did happen to sign Marquise Brown off the streets, a guy who's very streaky, kind of fits the mold of a poor man's Tyreek Hill, but in a lot of ways, like is still a very respectable wide receiver in this game. Shorter in stature, but a pretty good possession guy. Has burst, can get down the field. Really open up our offense, I think. Around Rashee Rice, if he's not in some very deep legal trouble now, to be kind of our alpha at wide receiver, and then kind of just taking advantage of all the years we have of Kelsey left in him. But yeah, this is kind of a turning point year for us. I mean, we need to kind of go for the three-peat here. I think it makes a lot of sense for us to kind of, build our wide receiver room out for the future, given the lack of reliability across so many different guys that we brought in over the last couple of years to fill holes. But I say all this, and I'm feeling, an internal need to pivot. I feel like, we did lose L'Jarius Sneed to the Titans. We did happen to trade him. He got a pretty nice little extension. We got a draft pick for him. But to me, I feel like we can wait in the second round to get the wide receiver. I was really eyeing one here at the back end, guys like, Ladd McConkey, Troy Franklin. But in a lot of ways, I feel like filling the need at corner might be more important for us to get back to the mountaintop. So I'm going to go ahead and go Kool-Aid McKinstry here to be, our corner next to Trent McDuffie in our secondary. This helps to fill a pretty important need for us as we kind of try to get our way back to the Super Bowl. But, just a guy with incredible ball skills. He's probably better off playing a little bit more on zone. He does lack a little of that, physicality, I think, on a one-on-one basis with some of the bigger body receivers in this game. But in a lot of ways, I feel like he comes at a pretty high value here, falling to us at 32. And a lot of folks have him going probably early second half of the first round. So that kind of stands out to me. I feel like, if you want to toss a wide receiver over here as a potential pick for us, like the guys I mentioned or others, I'm comfortable with that. I think Ennis Rakestraw and even Kamari Laster might be some also very solid options for us as well. But yeah, just critically thinking about this because of the fact that we did sign Marquise Brown here late. And, I think we've got enough in the wide receiving, pool here to kind of get us back to that mountaintop. But we could also use our second rounder on one as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting how they kind of navigate the draft here. Obviously, you mentioned Snead and such, right? Is there potential trades? Like they can go all in, kind of like, hey, we need to address, wide out and cornerback. The rest are just going to be roster spots, basically, that we need just some more depth on. So they could honestly just like trade a haul basically for the best possible talent that they can get at cornerback or wideout. I do like the Kool-Aid McKinstry pick. I think it makes sense. Like you mentioned, Snead just, trading him because of salary and such and getting younger on there. I think it totally makes sense. I think Watson, like he's decent, but if you're going to play, the Super Bowl level, you kind of need to, stud, at least above average cornerbacks, I feel like. So if they're able to get, decent quality play from Kool-Aid, great. And then, Marquise Brown, he's 1 year, right? Kind of a 1 year rental in a way, and kind of probably going to be like that Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't know how they're going to be able to financially afford all those contracts and such. And we'll see what happens with Rashee Rice. Hopefully they do have wideouts to throw to, but that could honestly dictate. Like I honestly would not be surprised if they do draft like 2 wideouts in this draft. Especially like if Sky Moore, like he didn't have the best season last year, but now will be a great time for him to like play to his potential. So, but we'll see. I think all those things should be considered. Left tackle or tackle position, I think they kind of work with what they have at the moment there. So with Wanya Morris, but yeah, I think, and then maybe moving Jawan Taylor there. So, but yeah, I think they have enough talent. It's just a matter of putting all the pieces together. And I would not be surprised if they trade for the players that they want here, especially for this three-peat that they're all kind of searching for.
Yeah. I mean, if they were to happen to pull that off, that'd be pretty remarkable. I mean, they definitely have the best shot of doing it. Looking across the landscape of teams right now in the NFL, but still like very hard to continue to push and push and push and come down with Super Bowl championships. So I'm going to be interested to see what they do with this pick here. And that's a wrap here for the first round of our second official mock, but the first one that we've ever done with trades and kind of wearing the hats of different teams as general managers and such. So folks, if you're with us still, leave us a like, comment here. What did we get wrong? What did we get right? Tell us about any sort of draft day trades that you're seeing that we didn't put out there. Any players that may go to teams that we didn't really recommend or suggest. Totally interested in hearing all the wild scenarios that come out of people's heads. But Wayne, are there any other, just general thoughts you have about the draft or anything that we just did?
I mean, I'm just excited about potential trades that happen. Obviously the Panthers, right? Like that's a team. We'll see kind of what happens with regard. I think they have 2 second rounders there, but a lot. Some teams are I guess some teams are trying to position to maybe get themselves into the first round here again. But the Texans possibly too. So Overall, though, like I think it'll be exciting with regards to how these teams position. But I would love to see a bunch of trades. A lot of the Chiefs, right? If they're able to just pull off like, hey, if they can get a stud wide out and a stud corner, like I feel like their team's kind of just built for that year there, and then kind of moving on. So I don't know. We'll see. Just a lot of excitement, and then yeah, the Bears. Building up from what they've. This is like the most exciting offseason I think for Bears fans, and we'll see what happens with these two first round picks. I definitely see some sort of trade back happening. But at the end of the day, like it's just going to be exciting. I think what happens, and with Caleb Williams and whomever else we get there. So yeah, just overall excitement. I think.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I'm definitely interested to see where the Bears come down. With that second pick, I mean, obviously happy to see where they go with number one, two officially, but will be interesting to see kind of those teams in the, five to, I mean, looking at it like 5 to 13 range in those picks, like how many different, kinds of trade scenarios could come out of that. We've talked a lot about Atlanta, like what could happen at that pick, but yeah, just seeing how teams like go about constructing these rosters and, you know, I'm just excited to see maybe some new blood kind of emerge after this draft going into next year and kind of shaking up, the landscape of what's been, the hierarchy in the NFL over the last few years or so. Like, I'd love to see what Houston can do now with all their new, talent and, just opportunities to look ahead for. Yeah, I mean, Bears obviously kind of like seeing what kind of, move they can make in the NFC North and, yeah, man, this will be a fun year ahead. Not much else to say about it. Just excited to see the draft come and kind of sit back and enjoy it all.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything that any warnings or any moves that you would like to see, like in terms of maybe a team and the perfect, no matter what the draft position is or whatever, a perfect match that you think would be exciting to see?
Hmm. No, that's a good one. I mean, the wide receiver picks here kind of stand out, like looking up toward the top. Like if Marvin Harrison goes to LA with Justin Herbert, like that'll just be so much fun to watch. Almost feels like, watching his dad and Peyton Manning, like in their prime, or,
Yeah.
if if he falls to the Bears, like hallelujah. But if Adunze does like happen to be in Atlanta or,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe he's going to the Chargers or something like that'd be fun too. I don't know, Brock Bowers in New York with Aaron Rodgers, like first year, like that could be kind of exciting. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll just have to see. I don't know. I'm like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of different scenarios here that could happen.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I've
those are
seen.
probably some of my
Yeah.
points. And I do not want to see JJ McCarthy in Minnesota for the record.
Yeah. Because you think he's gonna do too good? Is that what my understanding is, or what?
Yeah, like, well, if it's Drake May or it's JJ McCarthy going to Minnesota, like we don't need another X factor in that division. Like I want the Vikings to just kind of suck for a while. Let us kind of try to duke it out with the Packers and Lions a little bit. Let us get a couple easy wins throughout the year. But man, if they happen to get one of those top quarterback prospects and like
Hmm.
kind of all bets are off over the next like 5 years or so. Like I just don't know what we can really expect
Yeah.
to happen. I mean, Detroit would be the one team to kind of like keep an eye on because we don't know how long Goff's going to be
Yeah.
good at this point, and we don't know what their backup situation would be. But
Who
yeah,
would
we'll
you
just have to see.
prefer? Who would you prefer if you're Kevin O'Connell? You're the decision maker. You got either the Patriots or the Cardinals to your beckoning. Or I guess in this case, maybe New England there. But yeah, who would you take if you had either the choice of Drake May or McCarthy? For the same draft capital.
Yeah, it's such a good question. I mean, JJ McCarthy kind of looks like the golden boy right now because they just won the national championship. He's making a lot of waves in the combine, but so did Zach Wilson. He didn't win a championship, but he was kind of like becoming that highly ranked, good looking kid coming out of college, like, had a great combine, looking like he's got the best arm talent in the game, and just like turns out to be a complete dud. Like, now, don't get me wrong, those are two completely different personalities and two different quarterbacks, in my opinion. But I do feel like there's a little bit of that narrative going along with JJ McCarthy that, like, I feel like Drake May just like has in physique, in arm talent, in like what people are saying, like pound for pound, he already possesses, is kind of what JJ McCarthy is like shooting for, in my opinion. Like, JJ McCarthy is trying to work his way into that like next tier of quarterback prospects, in my opinion. And like, I think Drake May has a lot of like those like raw skills already in his holster, and he's just like ready to get going. And to be honest with you, he's been completely overlooked in this whole like process, in my opinion, because a while ago he was like being considered the number one overall pick, and kind of in that conversation. And now it's kind of like, is he number 3? Like, will teams trade away from selecting him? Like, it'll be interesting, but I think he'll have a chip on his shoulder coming into this year. And I think he's just, from a lot of what like quarterbacks have said based on tape, like he seems to be a guy that's like plug and play, will be a top 15 quarterback type.
Yeah, I mean, for me at least, like, and I mentioned before, it's just if I am Kevin O'Connell, right? It's like, get me Drake May, and I'll get you a championship, just because he knows how to. He brought the best out of Kirk Cousins. Like, Kirk Cousins was playing at an MVP level before he got hurt and everything. So imagine what he can do, with a rookie quarterback, rookie contract, tossing to Justin Jefferson. Hopefully he stays and everything there. With that offense. And then obviously, defense maybe took a little bit of a dip there, losing Daniel Hunter, but at the same time, they reloaded a little bit there. So, but yeah, like, that would just be such a deadly team that I would not want to necessarily face, because O'Connell is a good coach. Like, everything we've heard and seen, he's a good coach. And when good coaching meets tremendous talent, like we've seen with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, like, a lot of great things can happen there. So, we'll see what happens, but man, yeah, I just hope it's JJ McCarthy, actually, because I feel like they're gonna trade. The Vikings are gonna trade. If it's a pick between either of them, I'll take JJ McCarthy. We'll see.
Yeah, and I think McCarthy will have success as a quarterback in the NFL. I mean, yeah, I was hard pressed to take one of the two. I just feel like I don't want Minnesota leaving this draft with something to be excited about at quarterback. I want them to like just feel some real pain and just be kind of playing with the kind of talent they had last year, like Dobbs and just all those other guys that were kind of backing him up throughout the year, Mullins and all those other types of dudes. So we'll just have to see. But yeah, man, I think that pretty much is a wrap. Folks, again, if you're out there, show us some sort of love here, and stay tuned with us. We'll probably do a little bit more on NFL as we get closer to the draft. So with Wayne, I'm Patrick, signing off for the Ball and Breakfast podcast.